Let's take a look at some of the key numbers to remember on Election Day. There are 338 seats across the country up for grabs. A party needs 170 of those to win a majority. There are 27.4 million people eligible to vote. 4.7 have already cast their ballots at the advance polls. All right, with more, I want to bring in Jamie Gillies. He's a political science professor at St. Thomas University. He's in Fredericton this morning. Good morning. Glad you could be with us.
Good morning, Marcia. Happy Election Day.
Happy Election Day to you, too. So we look at that 170 seats required for a majority government. Do you think we're going to get there tonight?
Well, most pundits and the voters I talk to clearly don't think so, that both of the major parties have not done enough to get to that magic number of 170. So if we're in a minority government situation at the end of the evening tonight, it will be very interesting come Tuesday morning about how these scenarios might play out.
Sure. So to have a minority government, you need how many seats?
Well, as long as you can find a willing partner to get to that 170, it will depend on what the makeup of the House of Commons looks like after the vote. But if neither the Conservatives or Liberals get there, there's going to be a lot of jockeying and discussions among the other parties.
For sure. So when people talk about Liberal minority versus Conservative minority, talk to us about those differences.
Well, a couple scenarios could play out on election night. One is that the Liberals get enough seats, win the most seats, and have a willing partner in somebody like the NDP and or the Greens that gets them to 170, and then they can form some sort of working governing arrangement or a coalition or a confidence and supply agreement like they have in British Columbia right now. So that's one scenario. Liberals win the most seats. The second one is the Conservatives win the most seats, but the Liberals are close and they've got willing coalition partners in other parties, in which case the Liberals could claim that they have the ability to govern, and Justin Trudeau is still Prime Minister after Election Day. So those are two of the scenarios with a Liberal minority government.
So do you think that we would know the outcome this evening? Do we know if it's too soon? I mean, obviously we have to bring in the Governor General here. She's got a role to play. How soon would we know who's Prime Minister and who's in charge?
Well, some of this will perhaps depend on the negotiations that may or may not have already started between some of these parties. So maybe Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh have an idea of, should that scenario play itself out, that they have an ability to form a government with 170 or more seats, that they've already had some discussions, and one or both can allude to that on election night when we know the results across the country.
What's the difference between a minority government and a coalition government?
Well, in this sense, a coalition government would be a working arrangement that they've written down and formalized. We've had coalition governments in the past where one of the smaller parties agrees to support the other government on confidence motions, and the larger party agrees on some of the planks of the other platform and agrees to support them. Those are difficult because they do require some time for negotiation. So if a coalition forms, it might not be tonight or tomorrow morning. The difference with a minority government is that in some cases you don't want a formal coalition. Either the smaller parties don't want it or the larger party doesn't, in which case you have to work with the parties to find out what they're willing to support. Stephen Harper's first two governments were very similar to this, where he was basically governing on a vote-by-vote basis with no formal partner.
Is that why minority governments fall apart?
That's one of the reasons, and also there's simply a trust issue. These political parties have a different grassroots, a different group of supporters. It's very difficult to get everybody singing from the same song sheet when one of the larger parties is basically in the driver's seat and in control. But sometimes these scenarios play out where you can find a way to work with a cabinet, maybe put one of the members of the smaller party in cabinet, agree on their fundamental issue. So, for example, the NDP may demand something like electoral reform in order to be in a willing coalition with the Liberals or something like that. And the Liberals agree, and that could hold up from anywhere to a year to 4 years.
Jamie Gillies, political scientist, thank you so much. And again, happy Election Day.